I'd like to call this meeting of the Newington Board of Education to order. The date is March 27th, 2024, and the time is 7:01 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deb, would you please call the roll?
Mary Beatrice.
Here.
Brittany Park. Sean Holland.
Here.
Anthony Malin.
Here.
Timothy Newton.
Here.
Amy Buddy.
Here.
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 I have everyone here except Ms. Park.
Thank you. I'd like to open up to public participation. We have nobody in the room, but if anyone is online, you can raise your hand to participate. 3 minutes to speak on board business. We got you, Anastasia. Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our consent agenda.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Or do we have to say 8-0? Brittany absent. I learned that from Mr. Mayor last night. Okay, we have next agenda item is Superintendent of Schools report. Dr. Brummett.
Thank you. This is my standard memo that I won't go into detail about. It just gives you some highlights of recent happenings in the district and some standard information about our expenditures and our enrollment. I'll defer my comments later on to updates about the budget and our presentation last night to the town council. So thank you very much.
Any questions or comments? Okay. We're on new business. We have an update on the elementary principal hiring process.
Thank you. That Mr. Carisi is going to provide that update, and I'm going to put up a presentation, very brief presentation.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you an update on the 2 elementary principal vacancies that we have open at this time, one at John Patterson School and one at Elizabeth Green Elementary School. And this will be for the 24-25 school year. So we have put out the postings for those positions. They actually went out for over around 2 weeks. They did recently just close. We have a very fair number of applicants. So that's always great to see. Really strong applicant pool for 2 very important positions in our district. So we're really excited about that. We had an opportunity last week on March 20th to meet with both the Elizabeth Green and the elementary school staffs. And what we shared with them at that time, and we kind of did a little kickoff meeting, was just the initial goals of some of the qualities, knowledge, skills, and characteristics or dispositional attributes that we would want to see in an elementary principal from kind of the district level viewpoint. Folks that would come in and be able to continue to move our mission, vision, and goals forward. And so those were like the highlights that we shared with them. And then we wanted to know from them what feedback they would want to give for whom they might consider a successful candidate. So we shared with them that we would, following this whole group meeting that we had, follow up with a feedback form where they could provide us with any feedback that they had that the committees should take into consideration as they are looking for the next building principal for John Patterson School and for Elizabeth Green School. So then we also shared with them the process and the ways in which they could participate. So one method that they could simply participate would be what you'll see there under step 2, gathering feedback from stakeholders and process participant interest, is that feedback form that I just spoke to. So that was sent out the very next day. Also, what was sent out was the selection committee form. So if you wanted to do more than just give feedback, but also be a part of any steps in the process, that we gave you an opportunity to do that as well. So we have many, many staff members who will be joining us throughout the process of the selection of those 2 building principals. The first step in the selection process is going to be the screening of applicants. So we are gathering a group together of staff from each school and administration to review the candidate pool that we have and to narrow that down. So that way we can bring folks in for the next step in the process, which would be the initial interviews. And then we have another group of staff and administrations who will be interviewing approximately 12 candidates for the initial interviews. From that, Dr. Brumman, if you want to proceed in the presentation, the next step in the process will be then those successful candidates from that process will go into a performance task, and they will have to actually demonstrate their skills, knowledge, abilities, and dispositional character attributes to us, and that will be held on May 13th and 16th. So we have, again, another group of folks who will be joining us for that, comprised of staff and administration. And then successful candidates from that would join a meet and greet, where we would have a meet and greet at each school. At that point, we would invite not only staff and administration, but families, Board of Ed members, other folks to see our finalists, our final candidates that we're considering for each school. We expect to bring forward around 3 to 4 candidates for the meet and greet. So that way the board can, and all staff can meet a number of folks. And then from that, we would have at the very end, the superintendent would decide who the 2 best candidates would be, one for each school. So that's the process that we have moving forward right now. Again, a lot of what we would say stakeholder participation as far as like school building representation. And we open that up to the whole school. So it's not just classroom teachers, it's any staff member in the school is welcome to participate in any part of that process, is also welcome to provide feedback to us. So that way we can all take that into the process and use that as our kind of guide to help us and support us in the selection. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions that you might have.
Mr. Halloran?
All right, I have 2, and I understand because it's the candidate information. My first question is, are any of the applicants currently in the NPS system now?
We do have internal and external candidates. Absolutely. Mhm.
And would you be able to share the initial goals from step 1, if that's possible?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
I will have to read them off. I do not have them in this presentation, but I'd be more than happy to share them with you. I thought about that and I thought about putting those in, but I didn't know if it would be too much. But let me see. So if you do put up the, if you have that link accessible, Dr. Brummett, that would be wonderful. It's slide 3 in the initial presentation that I shared with the staff. So yes, that was part of the staff presentation, but there was a lot more. Oh, look at that. So had you been a part of it, I would have asked you, like I did them, in the welcome sticky note, to have a pen and paper available if you wanted to take notes. But you all do have that. So here again, when you dig directly into our vision, mission, and our goals, these would be those kind of lighthouse. The very last one, so that, oh, portrait of a graduate, right? I can read it aloud.
Yeah, there. Perfect. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
This is the one.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? While Sean reads.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ms. Weaver.
Just a question, are we involving like the other elementary school principals too? Just curious if that kind of comes in, just given.
Correct. So all administrators were also welcome to sign up on a
Okay.
participation form to be a part of the process. So yes, if they would like to be, or have
And-
time to be, or are available.
Right. And just curious too, obviously there's so many different factors that go into it, but would this be kind of one of them larger, or like is there, not going to say we're setting records in terms of attracting talent, but obviously want to know kind of the work that we're doing in the school district is obviously paying off with how it looks from an outside perspective. So kind of compared to other candidate pools in the past, is this larger or?
I would say it's equivocal. You know,
Okay.
we have over 60 applicants. I think that's pretty strong pool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Looks like there's a lot of thought that went into this hiring process, and it's a lot of work. So very important roles, as you said. When was the last time we hired an elementary principal? Was it Jason Smith?
It's been quite a while. It was.
7,
Yeah.
8 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Internal candidate from Kellogg.
Yep, yep.
Yes.
All right. Moving on, we have an update for budget 24-25. Would you like to start, Dr. Brumett?
I would. Last night, Board Chair Parati and I, along with Mr. Jacomowitz, spent some quality time with the town council. We had created a presentation, and some of it was familiar slides that we went over quite briefly, but we did spend a fair amount of time talking about this stat I don't think the board has seen, because I finally was able to cultivate it. Our DIRG 3 budget comparisons. I know I had mentioned that during our presentation to the board, but now I was able to finalize it. It is pretty remarkable that our historic increases over the last 3 years put us at close to the bottom of our DIRG. There you go, thank you. We're in red on this list. We're number 17 out of 21. So I did share this with the town last night. Sorry, this thing is advancing with its own mind. Just so that they were aware of how we compare to our DIRG. Now, these are final appropriations, so that's an important piece to understand. This is 3 years, final allocations from the town, respective towns. So we're in the bottom quarter of that list. Why is that relevant? Because it does speak to why our ask is a little higher this year for multiple reasons. One of them is the historically low budget allocations. So we also reviewed, these are things that the board has already seen. We did spend time on this. An update for the board is the impact. Oh my gosh, I get so wrapped up. I have to do it again. So I had created, the board has had much interest in the non-lapsing fund utilization. We were able to share last night with the town that we're projecting to not use the non-lapsing fund this year. But that begs the question, what did you have to give up to get there? So these are the things that so far have allowed us not to tap into the non-lapsing fund this year yet. We get a small health benefit credit that has to do with the projections of health insurance and actuals from last year, but the credit is awarded this fall. That we can apply to this year's expenses. Due to the very mild winter, we had some utilities breakage. Due to our unfortunate situation with our para benefits, our ability to retain and recruit folks has been tough, and there's oftentimes unfilled positions. So that's been some breakage of about $500,000. And we've postponed a lot of things. We've postponed our HVAC projects, our technology infrastructure, and some playground maintenance. So this is why we have not tapped into the non-lapsing fund this year. So that does free up those resources for next year, which we did spend time talking to the town about last evening. So now I get that tab. And so that's a highlight that the board might not have seen yet. We did talk about this slide, and I want the board to see this as well, because currently we're projecting to use $2.2 million next year in our non-lapsing fund resources, which would be 2.8% of our budget. Why is that important? Because that's money that's just coming in from, for lack of a better word, savings. And what it puts us at is going into the subsequent year's budget, we're already going to start off needing 2.8% or 2.2 million, because we're backfilling that with non-allocated money from the town. But in full disclosure, and this was shared last night with the town, we do have, if nothing changes, we will have $3 million in non-lapsing fund resources. We're recommending that we stick with the 2.2 million, because if we go all the way up to 3 million, then our budget hole subsequent year would be 3.65%. And that's a huge hole to start with. Plus, some of the potential budget adjustments cut us even further to the bone than we already are. And it would be wise to have at least some money in reserve should we get a bad winter or some of our estimates or projections come out to be wrong. So that's what we shared last evening. The board has seen this slide about the additional potential reductions, and this was shared last night with the town. So we reiterated the non-lapsing fund resources. If we were to ask the town to remove HVAC and bus replacement from the capital, that would allow another $1 million to go back into operating. And that would not impact taxpayers, because that money is already part of the budget that the town has allocated. We also are, this year, there is an MOU that's going to go into play, but that'll affect this year's budget. We want to have an MOU next year, which now the town is probably leaning more toward an ordinance change, which would then allow us to redirect that open choice money back to the board's operating budget and really bring down some of those special ed costs. So that would, though, take for next year an ordinance change. The town seems like they're interested, so that is something that we can consider. The town also asked us to consider aligning our utility and contractual projections to theirs. A reasonable request, though we are, bigger and have typically higher utilization. That's another reason why, if this does go through as a reduction, we would need to make sure we had some money in reserve in case we have a bad winter or the contracts settle higher or some of those other variables. And then last night we reviewed with the town that we've had no new developments in attrition. In other words, no one's resigned that we don't need to replace. And we've also had no updates to our health insurance projections. And Chair Parati, please to jump in at any time. Chair Parati presented quite a bit of this last night as well. We also talked about the budget history. Our 7-year budget history in Newington is 2.29 on average. Our 10-year budget history is lower than that, 2.08. And then I was able to show the town our average, the current average in our DIRG is 5.67. Now, full disclosure, that these are just board-approved budgets. I don't believe there's any towns in our DIRG that have had their equivalent of the town council approve their budget yet. Like us, they're kind of in the middle of that process. But on average, the asks this year are quite a bit higher than typical because we are in that same boat of ESSER fund loss, escalating special ed costs, and escalating inflation. Those are all things that all of us are grappling with. And yes,
Question, something came into my head, I'm sorry. The zero in 21-22, was that because of the COVID money and how come it was a zero? Is that just what the council said?
yeah, that was where it landed with the council, yes. And I don't know why, I'm sure, we certainly didn't ask for zero.
Okay.
So it was cut to zero. I believe, that might have been a year that we had to use non-lapsing, Lou, is that true? We dipped in,
Big surplus that was declared, plus, the second part that we,
Sorry.
yeah, two major parts. One was a large surplus that was declared because with school shut down, the expenses in general were less, and then there was, I don't remember, one of them was like $1.3 million and the other was like $700,000, and I just don't remember exactly why that is the case, but there was a big money and they said that justified, that covered all your contractual increases for the following year. So there was no increase provided to the board.
but it is notable that that year we did have to dip into the non-lapsing fund, for $438,000.
Right. Yep.
So typically, and you can see here, just for, by means of comparison, 2017-18, the board's budget increase that year was a 0.29%. And they did have to, I wasn't here at the time, but there was a reliance on the non-lapsing fund of 1.2 million that year. So you can see the correlation between low budget increases and reliance on the non-lapsing fund. Sure. Great. And then we just reviewed what the board had already is aware of, because this is where we landed at the end of the board process of a 7.5% increase. And then here's where we were going into last evening. We need a 7.5% increase. The town has proposed or the town manager, I should say, proposed a 4% increase. Oops.
Ms. Yap, do you have a question?
Hi, yes. I just wanted to clarify, and Lou, I know you said you didn't remember, but can you explain to the board, especially the newly elected board, why we got a 0% increase? I know we did get, the town did pay for certain things, and we did have an MOU signed, because I don't want it to just seem like we just got nothing, because that's not true. Do you remember exactly what happened?
Yes, that year, there were two specific large dollar transactions. One was a very large surplus declared back to the town because it was, all the expenses that year were lower because of the suppressed level of activity or school closings that were going on. Or the other one was actually the 1% deposit into the non-lapsing fund that we made. So between the two of them, it was about $2 million of resources. And the sentiment at that time was, you have adequate resources to pay your contract increases, and the answer is a zero. So there's no additional resources that were placed in other locations for us that year. It was very straightforward, a zero, because of everything to do with the pandemic and nothing else.
All right, so again, this is where we landed as of the 26th, which was last evening. But I don't know if you want to speak to this, Ms. Parati. She helped to create the
Sure.
slide, so I thought you might want to speak to it.
Sure. So the first line is, oh, Jim P. left the meeting. Just in time. The first line is where we are at 80 million with the 7.5, and where the town manager proposed the 85 million with 4% increase. So you can see there's a big gap there. The next line is just showing if the town council were to reassign those two capital line items to the operating budget, that would result in a just over $1 million to the town proposed budget, which would bring it up to a 5.34% increase. No change to the board ask. And then the next one is the ordinance change. So that's if they do go ahead with the ordinance change, hopefully this summer, it'll lower our ask by 400,000 because we can redirect some of that open choice special ed money into our operating budget, bringing our ask down to 7.02. Again, no change on the town side. The other line is the $100,000 if we were to align our utilities and the contractual increase assumptions, bringing us down to 6.89%. And this is the point where if we don't get the 6.89, we would have to, like, that's kind of the threshold for laying off staff, because anything lower than that, we really can't pay or meet our obligations. So the last line is just showing that gap of getting us to the point or 6.89%, which is $1.2 million or 1.55%. So that's what we would have to hope that the town can put into our budget. Anything else on that slide you want to?
No, I think we did go on to the next slide relative to the
Yeah.
cost of cuts.
Yeah, so if there's any further reductions, we're already using most of our non-lapsing. Again, as we explained earlier, that 700,000 that's left in there is kind of a buffer just in case, like, our assumptions are off a little bit. And the cuts to essential staff services or staff, the average is for every $100,000 that we want in the budget, we'd have to lay off approximately 2 people, because that's accounting for their salaries plus unemployment we'd have to pay out. So you're not really getting the full benefit of their entire salary and benefits by laying off a person, because we have to pay out the unemployment, and obviously we don't want to do that. And then the other things that we've already really talked about, just it would be huge hit to morale and not allow us to focus on our goals in the schools.
I have a question, or more of a concern that I'm still trying to get answered. I got a screenshot here. It was one of the earlier budget, the financial impact of the contractual COLA obligations. So, and it has a total down here, but what is NASA administrators? I have a question on that, first of all.
I can start there, and if you have, NASA is our administrative union, so that is all of our principals, vice principals, coordinators, and a director, 2 directors.
Thank you. So 1.73% increase, which I think that's reasonable. I want to go down to, so I just want to say, I'm a state employee and I took zeros, 4 of them for the last 4 years. And we're getting like a 2.5% increase this year. So I want to go down to all other non-bargaining units. We're going to give them 4%, which is $358,136,000. And out of all those, that's the second highest number I see there. Who are they? Is that your back office? Who are all the other non-bargaining that we're just going to rubber stamp a 4% on without talking about negotiating or doing something with that?
Well, these again are estimates because the contracts are negotiated. They don't have a contract that's negotiated like a union contract, but that would include me, Lou, Steve.
Well, you said you're an administrator, so you'd be in the,
No, I'm not in
Oh,
a
okay.
union.
Okay.
So there's
Thank you.
positions, and then the director of HCD. So there's 5 of us in that. 5.
and what about your support staff? Does that include your support staff?
No, my support staff is largely under AFSCME, meaning secretaries. Where does is Sophie under AT?
Yes.
Okay. So my direct assistant is an AT, but the bulk of all of the secretaries that work in central office are under the AFSCME contract. And again, that's an estimate because that is a contract that's currently under negotiation.
So that's contractual then?
Yes,
And that's under negotiation?
it is.
So you're estimating?
We are, and that
And
goes, yes.
And again, my opinion, only because, again, having had 4 years of zeros and a 2.5% increase, it's generous. That's all. That's what I wanted to know, because I didn't, and that's a big number. When on his chart, it's a big number. It's the second biggest number there.
Right, and I think typically the groups that are not part of bargaining units tend to follow suit with the bargaining units, just as a rule of thumb. But that might not happen because the nurses are under contract negotiation, the non-instructional administrators are under contract negotiation. The AT salaries are actually set by the town manager.
And what does
So,
AT stand for? I'm sorry, Mr. Dr. Crum.
What does it
It's,
stand for?
The technical term for it is administrative technician. And they are, I mean, we employ our own as a board, but they fall under a category under the town. So we take direction from the town manager on what the town manager generally provides as an annual increase, and then we follow suit with that. So we take direction from the town on that.
They're not union.
No, so other ATs like on the town side would be similar to like superintendent of highways, superintendent of parks and grounds. So all the, there's a number of ATs on the town side, and we also employ ATs.
Thank you. So the 4%, so what I'm saying is I keep hearing about laying off and teachers, and I know that's a scare tactic always for every town, whatever the Board of Education is negotiating. But this, again, is 4%. So it's just a negotiation with who, the town? In other words, who has impact over what that final number is going to be? That's what I'm wondering.
As we're talking about AFSCME, that contract negotiation is.
That's asked me for all the other non-bargaining.
Oh, all of the non-bargaining?
That's the number I keep looking at.
Okay, that would fall back on me largely, and me and the board for my salary. So those pieces are just, these are estimates. We may land lower than that, but these are kind of aligning themselves basically to the going rate. The other thing that's kind of bundled into those pieces is several members of that non-bargaining unit have a retirement increment that's part of their not their contract, but their agreement. So that causes that line item to be a little bit higher. 5 folks, 2 out of the 5 are in the process of getting retirement increments. So that kind of artificially inflates that a little bit. But the rest of it is just COLA raises.
I understand that, but it's a 4%.
But
COLA
Lou
raise.
has something to add,
Can
I
I
think.
jump in on a couple points,
Surely.
make it a little?
And I won't call
If
you
you're
Shirley
focusing
again.
specifically on the last item, the all other non-bargaining.
Yeah.
That's individuals who are not part of a union.
Right.
Do not have benefit package.
Okay.
Because of how the ESSER grant,
So Dr. Brumman says she's part of that. Yes or no?
well, right, she's
She
non-union.
has a benefit
right, but-
package.
But specifically for that category, we have all of our security,
Who are they? I mean,
there's,
how many people? Do you know how many?
in that
people?
group, probably 40, 50 people.
Okay.
Um,
And how
It's a
many people
combination
don't have a benefit package
All
in
of
that
them.
group? Well, that's not true because
Right.
Dr.
Yeah,
Brumman said
no,
she's part of that.
Yeah, these are all, the group of the staff members who are there are security guards. There are monitors, both for lavatories, hall monitors, cafeteria aides. The lower echelon of our hourly staff permeates all across that. The one part that isn't just presented in a fashion that, answers the question properly is
That's what I
there's,
needed.
well,
Go ahead.
everybody is aware that we have over $1 million of ESSER money that's, has expired at the end of this year. Those individuals have to go someplace. There are 4 security guards that are brought back to the operating budget who are in ESSER this year to the tune of about $220,000. So 220 of that $358,000 is just because the ESSER grant is no longer here. As of right now, they're in that category, so they're part of the base. So it's really like $125,000 of increases across the totality of that group.
So we're still negotiating a 4% for them. And I want to keep the security guards, but I know I have many friends who are doing that now and they have pensions from police departments. And so I'm still questioning a 4% rubber stamp. without some kind of oversight on how we land with that. You know what I mean?
Correct. That decision is based on both the market conditions and what is going to be appropriate for the compensation strategy for the whole district. As we've spoken earlier, we are woefully behind on the benefit side for all the paraprofessional group. That's been a big detriment for retention and recruiting. To give you an illustration, we pay the paras in the district somewhere between $24,000 and $28,000 a year for a 180-day school year. That's there. Because we could not keep enough of them employed, we had to go to CREC to support the open choice kids in our district. We couldn't do it with our own people. We're paying $67,000 a para because we have.
Are the pairs all involved in that, all of the non-bargaining, those?
Yes, they're not any.
Okay, and I don't,
There's a separate line for peers and tutors there.
so,
Right, there's one above it, but that's all part of the same basic cadre of the entry level starter positions in the school district where we are under intense pressure of trying to create.
I understand that. I really do. And I want good people and I want to pay them fairly. I just don't like when I see a general category and a rubber stamp of 4%. Again, when most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, state of Connecticut's given like 2% after 4 years of zeros.
Right.
4% is generous. I'm not saying it's undeserved.
Right.
I just want to know how we land on it and is there negotiations anywhere? So maybe,
Right.
maybe the security guards or the parents, maybe they should get 4%, maybe, but maybe there's some other people in there that's rather generous, and isn't needed, and we can make some cuts. That's all I'm trying to bring up. Again, I don't know the exact because it's general, but it's a big number. It's the second biggest number in that page. And we don't have answers. And then we talk about other things. And I know it always comes up, oh, well, we're gonna have to lay off teachers. That's the big scare tactic all the time. We generally don't lay off teachers. Most towns don't. It's the same thing with police officers when I was on the job. Oh, we're gonna lay off cops. You know, Waterbury laid off cops, but they were mismanaged completely. That's all. I'm not trying, I just need, I keep trying to get to an answer and I keep getting circular talk and not a real answer. And again, I just want to say 4% is very generous. I'd like to know as a Board of Education member, do we have any input on who exactly is getting it? And do we have any say on whether they really all need a 4%?
I think that's kind of crossing the line of our role, right? Go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge some of the concerns. I think one, that's a generalized number for presentation purposes. I don't think this is necessarily
It's the number that
everyone.
we're given though.
Right, but we were also given
Okay.
a full list of all that, wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we can't, per Robert's rules, we can't have back and forth. So I'm just going to say my piece. So I think what's important to note is that a lot of this, one, the top number is 4.3%. That is what our teachers did. That's what we negotiated. We, as in Board of Ed members, Amy and myself were on the Board of Education side, and then our lawyers. Market rates were actually higher, and Town Council member, John Donahue. Market rates are probably a little higher, actually, than some of those other negotiations. So we came in actually pretty reasonable on that. And that's a 3-year, 4% each year. And we can judge based on what employment we have. I'm a state employee too, so I know exactly what I'm getting to. I get a 2.5% COLA.
Thank you.
But then I also get bonuses because I also get raises and stuff because I work in pension fund management. But I also don't do what teachers do. So I fully was supported that contract negotiation.
That's why we should be talking about laying off teachers, but go ahead.
Let's not do the back and forth. We gotta, but I think what's important to note here is that all non-bargaining is probably, like 40 different people, and it's not everybody's getting 4%. It's that we're overall estimating a lot of these are just gonna go up. And if 220,000 of that is just us moving the actual, just the salaries we already had from ESSER to this, it's not saying that. And I think if if needed and requested, we can get a full breakdown, and we have gotten a full breakdown of every single position and every single salary. It has been in the budget packet. So you can see every single position and everyone in their step position at every school, and you can see who makes what without names, obviously. But from that point, the role of the board is to judge the entire budget, but then in terms of hiring and firing of actual staff, it's the charge of the superintendent. And then we judge the superintendent on whether she's done a good job. She's the CEO of the company. We as a board judge if the CEO is a good manager or not. So it's not our business to say, you shouldn't hire this person, or you should fire this person, or you should pay this person that. It's how much do we budget for in this line item?
Right. But-
So
but it
we
is
don't
our-
judge whether, the only thing we're a part of in negotiations is the 4.3% is the people on the board who are part of the actual contracts. Now, we can have an opine that certain people shouldn't make this much money and that kind of thing, but ultimately, the only power that we have as a board, and I wouldn't say the only power, it's chief power here, is if you disagree with that, you can put that in the review of the superintendent as you feel her management is. It is not on us to say you can do this or you can't do that, because that is micromanaging a company, which is the Board of
Not asking-
Education.
I'm just asking for reasons why we have a 4% across the board, big number. And
I think
do we have any impact on
I
it?
think the point is maybe if you have those questions, to direct those to the superintendent to ask for, if you want a minutia breakdown of what every single person makes. And
I'm
we
not
have
asking
gotten that.
And I'm not asking you either. I could
Let's-
do that. Thank you.
Yeah,
But
let's,
but we already have asked that,
Yeah,
and we already have.
And that's
gotten
been submitted. I just want to be clear, because that big number, all of the non-bargaining rather, is getting a lot of attention this evening. Just to be very clear, half that number is because the 4 security guards at the elementary level who are currently grant funded, and we want to keep them because they're very much endorsed by parents and staff alike.
Yep.
That accounts for about $200,000 of that number. The rest of that is cost of living increases. Arguably, and I would say that if other contracts settle lower, it would make sense to align with them. Unfortunately, when we put this budget together, it's December, January, February. We don't know where these other under negotiation contracts are going to land. And the town manager will set the AT line. So that is totally at her discretion, and we follow it. And we haven't heard yet. One of the things that was suggested by the town is we should align our increases to theirs when it comes to some of these groups. And we can do that. It's a little bit of a risk in case the contracts settle higher. But I really want to be clear that 358 does look like a large number, but a good chunk of it is because we had to take some employees from a grant funding scenario back to the board budget. And that's a good chunk of that money, $200,000.
Dr. Brumman, is there any grants that we could apply for to, again, for the security officers? Or, do you know what I mean?
They are not, I have not seen any grants that would allow us to fund salaries for security guards. I recently am in the process of applying for a grant to offset the cost of our Nor'easter Academy program. So we do actively look for grants. I have not seen any, and that would be pretty unusual, even though the state has put forth security grants over the years, but they've been largely for infrastructure like cameras, security doors, things of that nature. They don't typically have grant money to pay for salaries. So those are all things that kind of compile or add up into this number. There are districts that are laying off folks. My intern works for Hartford. They just laid off a lot of people. So that is a real threat right now. I'm hoping we can avoid that, but that number is real. If we cross it, there will be a loss of staff. That is unfortunately the reality. So.
Ms. Yop's
Thank you.
had her hand up for a while, so we can move on.
Thank you, Dr. Brumman.
Sure, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So first question. So I know over the past few years, we've done a 2.9% increase. Correct me if it was a little lower, mostly across the board. Are we going for 4% because we're trying to align with other paras in the district? And if we are, I know we don't offer any para benefits. Is that going to help with that? Because I know that was something that was still up for discussion. Maybe not this budget, but just in general. Because we've usually done like a 2.9% increase. I understand it's generalized, so I don't need anybody, saying that. I'm just asking because we've always done 2.9.
So the parent tutor 4% increase, yes, it's the one lever we have to be somewhat competitive, is to give them a better raise. And that's also a retention strategy. I can't recall what we did last year, Lou.
It was like 2.9.
I don't remember exactly, but
I
yeah.
can
No,
pull
I
it up.
believe the para tutor increase last year, the teachers, that would have been a contractual piece, was 2.9. So the teachers got a 2.9. Did the paras get a 3 last year? I just don't remember.
We bump them by 25 or 50 cents and whatever
Per hour.
that works out.
Well,
to.
we had.
Cool.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So we would have to look at that exact number. We do know the teachers got a 2.9% last year. We're going to have to look at our records to see what paras got last year.
I know last year, and I wasn't sure what time of the year it was, but I do remember that we weren't on par with other paras in our district. So I remember we had the state made us increase it to a certain amount. I don't know if you guys recollect that, maybe Jessica or Sam. We had to bump them up more than 50 cents because we weren't aligning with other people, and we gave them a raise. I do remember that. I do remember that it was like a special meeting we had in like July or something. I'm not sure it was last year before. But that's one of the things I was wondering. And I understand what you mean by making it competitive because they don't get any benefits. Yeah, that was my question. I can't even remember my other question. I apologize. It was a long discussion. Yeah. so
Mr.
that was
Freezy's
just-
going to comment on your question about the para raise or
Yeah.
special meeting.
If I could, I think we did, we did the increase that you're speaking to. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yes.
Last year, we did have another special meeting just to share some of the medical benefit parts of the package that our paraeducators do not have access to, as well as what it might look like should they go to unionize. And I think, that we wanted to make the board aware of both salary-wise, being competitive with other districts, and also medical package. I do want to be clear because I know we use the term benefits often kind of synonymously with a number of things that people may or may not get. I just want for the board to be aware, and the public as well. We do have a benefit. We do offer benefits to our hourly staff. We do not offer medical benefits. But we do offer things like sick days, or we call them PTO days, and other types of benefits. And that's what we talked about 2 years ago, putting into place. And we did. So we did invest more monies into this area of the budget to be able to offer those, because even before that, we didn't even offer PTO days or anything like that, or paid professional learning time, or any of those offerings. So we did both a salary increase, some benefits increases, but again, we are void medical benefits or insurance.
Thank you.
And I think we mentioned it last night at the town council meeting to offer medical benefits to paras would be about $2.1 million.
Correct. And there was a question about what's the breakage, because right now we're spending a lot of money on agency paras to backfill our vacancies. And that breakage right now is probably about $500,000, because we're spending that money that had we had benefits, they would have been hired with our own pay rate. So that is a bit of an ongoing challenge. So I'll just move on. I think just the only other thing I wanted to update the board about last night's discussion was the town did ask a few questions that we're going to provide follow-up on. One was all the cuts that we've made to date. So I'll be sending out a memo tomorrow, which the board will be copied on, which will outline the Q&A that they wanted. It includes a copy of the presentation that I provided last night, or we provided. It will include the cuts that we've made to date. And then one town councilor asked for which ESSER positions have we cut out of the budget entirely, and which are we trying to maintain by moving them over to the board budget? And then the final question was unfunded mandates. I've been searching all day for that list. What I was able to get through CAPS and CABE is, and Shippen and Goodwin actually, is a 50-page document of every unfunded mandate from 2015 forward. There are no price tags on them, but they're all unfunded. So people will have to kind of read between lines. The board is already aware of the fact that this year our unfunded mandates rose to the level of about $600,000 right here. That's the financial literacy position, the indoor air quality, the HVAC mandates, and then the bilingual literacy tutor. So that's our impact this year. But even as recently as 2015 to present, it's a 50-page list. So that gives you a real picture of the fact that we are required to keep doing things with really no financial reimbursement from the state, though they're the ones that put those mandates on us that we have to do. So that was the final, but tomorrow you'll see a memo come your way electronically with a good accounting of what was follow-up questions from last evening. Okay. And that concludes my budget report unless there's
Ms.
other
Weaver?
questions.
Thank you for this. I appreciate it. And I think one of the things that's difficult is just trying to make clear the detrimental impacts of the ESSER, loss of ESSER, and then also the exorbitant increase in special ed. And I just wanted to reemphasize, and if I didn't think I heard any questions about that, but just that we again have less students, special ed students this year, but a $2 million
Yes.
increase.
This is one of
Yeah.
our biggest line item increases is special ed. So-
Which is insane to me. And I would just kind of emphasize too, we can't do anything about this. We don't get federal funding that is
Minimal.
addition to, or fully funded, sorry, from this. And just one of the things that I think is drastic, and when I'm talking to other, boards of education members in other towns, they alluded to the amount of cuts that they will have, the amount we're cutting of ESSER, and just the amount. And I'm just, it's a scary year for everybody. But I think one of the things I would just ask too is kind of given this type of, I think it's a unique year. Obviously, we've had many unique years in the past, but we're seeing just a lot of funding cliffs. Just curious, the process moving forward and what we can do as a board to collaborate. Not that I'm teeing that up or anything.
There is
You
a
had it.
slide for that.
That.
So
Appendix slides, yay.
we are willing, and Ms. Parati, Chair Parati has been wonderful about reaching out to our counterparts on the town side to do some ongoing budget discussions. So we're still open to that. And then the next milestone is the public hearing on April 2nd at 6 p.m. And that provides anyone in the town an opportunity to speak about the board's budget or the town council budget in general. So those are the last two milestones. And then I believe after that public hearing, the town does, within a few days of that or weeks or so, 2 weeks, will set the official budget. And that's when we would then receive it, not the actual dollars, but the number. And then we'd have to reconvene and reconcile with what the town has allocated for us and what we had asked for, because right now they don't match.
And then just a follow-up on that too, that is prior to the close of session. And I know
Yes.
there
Yeah.
hasn't been much movement on that, and I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah, we reached out to Reps Turco and Farrar and kind of just, how's it going? Is any, what are they hearing? And they don't really have anything concrete, but the goal is to put that full ECS funding back in. Obviously, there's other things like this excess costs
Yes.
that we're advocating for, and
Perhaps restoration of magnet school tuition offsets. The state was supposed to take quite a bit of that on for this year, and right now that was taken out of the budget. And then we, as my organization CAPS, we try to testify against all the unfunded mandates. Sometimes we're successful and sometimes not. There's several coming our way that are still pending, like increases to playground maintenance costs and other things that are definitely going to fall and add to that list of unfunded mandates. So we've been monitoring that very carefully and testifying as we can. Okay.
Just wanted to say thank you for that. Sorry. I know, I just look at that number and I'm like, well, if we didn't have to pay magnet school tuition, we actually got the appropriate amount. I feel like that could be not
It would
easy,
be
but it would
helpful.
just be, it would simplify things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Ms. Yap?
Thank you. So I have a question, Dr. Brummett. I know that when the ESSER funds were given to us, there were a lot of positions that we had stated that when they're hired, it was a temp position and that the position would be gone when funding ended. And that was said at the board meeting. Did we keep all the positions that were hired under ESSER?
We
Even
have
though it
not
was
kept
just
them
for
all.
No,
We
how
have
many
kept-
did we hire under ESSER specifically when the money was allocated to us? And how many, basically, how many did we hire once we got the ESSER money? And how many did we let go? Like, how does that work? I'm probably not saying it
That's-
right, but I know
Yeah,
that we
I
said
know.
they were temporary only.
That's going to be in the memo that she sends out tomorrow.
Yes, that's a good point. We have discussed it. There are some that we've actually had some taper off even prior years, but with the memo that's going out tomorrow will show exactly the ESSER positions we'd like to retain in the board's operating budget and the ones that we've already eliminated in next year's budget. So they're here now, they will not be here next year. So so you're correct. The resources were meant to be to fill that gap. However, as stated in many presentations, we still have multilingual learners who aren't going away. In fact, they're going up in percentage, but pretty much every year and every month. And our BCBAs is another piece that we wanted to retain because we have ongoing children with behavior challenges that those positions do assist with. So, but we have reduced some other things like interventionists and coaches. So those things have happened over the course of years previous, as well as heading into next year.
Thank you. So I just wanted to be clear to the board. It's not that we're just laying people off. Prior to a lot of the people who are currently on the board being members, it was stated that the positions were temporary and everyone that was hired under ESSER, although, I'm not disputing that they're not needed. So let me be very clear with my words. I'm just saying that it was stated that they were hired as temporary positions under ESSER and they would be gone when funding was ended. So I'm not saying we don't have a need for things with obviously behavioral challenges and multilingual learners and whatever else we're facing, which I don't want to go down the list. But I think that I'm just saying this falls mostly on the state because that funding's ended, but now the towns have to pick up the slack because you've allowed us to have this cushion of additional resources for a certain amount of time, but then you're not continuing it. So now we have to basically put the burden on the taxpayers because the children are still having behavioral issues and we're increasing our diversity and multi-learners and everything else, but the funding's been taken away. So I think that this is just a time that maybe, we should basically, put that pressure back on our reps because why should we have to, take the hit for it when we still are having challenges and the money is gone and completely going away. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like it's falling on us, but we're not looking at the fact that we're still having these problems. We shouldn't be in this situation.
It's a fair statement. A lot of the COVID dollars were federal. But yes, it is a fair statement that the impact of post-COVID is still with us and the resources are going away. So that is one of our biggest challenges this year as to why, one of the reasons why our budget ask is higher than normal. All righty. So now I will turn it back over to board chair for new business.
Thank you. All right. We have a slew of policies So if there are no objections, we're gonna forego the roll call vote for each one and we'll do the all in favor thing. So Ms. Weaver, why don't you do the first?
Yeah, I just wanted to first also again thank my incredible policy subcommittee, Ms. Carr, Ms. Beatrice. They've been wonderful, and as always, Mr. Farisi, leading us on for all of this. And again, just want to preface all of these policies, everyone has read them. We have not gotten any comments back from them. We presented them all at last full board meeting on March 13th, just so the public knows. And this is our process that has been outlined, that we always, one, have them go through policy, then go to full board and have any comments at that time. There were no comments that we had that got back. And then we actually did have a policy meeting in between this time, in between March 13th and March 27th. We had one last Monday. And again, we just reiterated all of the go forward head on these ones. And I just wanted to note that a majority of these, or if not all, are the legislative mandates that have come out in the past session. So not only do we have to get these passed, but we have to basically use a lot of the language that was given to us. And all of these have been reviewed by Shipman and Goodwin, our legal counsel, as well. So that has all been vetted by them. Again, these are just legislative mandated changes. So with that, I will just start off our just policy RAMA with first one. And then I guess if you want to do some motions too, if there's any, but I'll do the first one. So move the Board of Education approve new policy 4212.1, increasing educator diversity as recommended. I need a second. If anyone wants a second, it's fine.
I'll second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. I think Sam left, right?
Yeah, he's off.
All right, 7-1.
Oh, sorry.
Move the Board of Education approve new policy 4218.12, reports of suspected abuse or neglect of children or reports of sexual assault of students by employees as recommended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed 8-0.
Move the Board of, oops, sorry. Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5145.55, child sex abuse or assault response reporting as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5141.21, administration of student medication in the schools as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Next, move the Board of Education approve new policy 5112.2, admission to the public schools at or before age 5 as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5111, admission as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5112, ages of attendance as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5131.911, bullying prevention and intervention as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5141.5, suicide prevention and intervention as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve new policy 5128, improve completion rates of the FAFSA as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5118.1, homeless students and youth as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 5113.2, attendance, truancy, and chronic absenteeism as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve new policy 5141.251, recess and play-based learning as recommended.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Move the Board of Education approve revised policy 6146, graduation requirements as recommended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Good job.
Thank you all. We'll be back with more policies next week. I'm not joking.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're back to public participation. If you are on the phone, or online, you can raise your hand to participate in discussion about board business. Ms. Havens.
Hi. All right, I was able to find the button. Sometimes I can't find the button.
Excellent.
Okay, I may have misheard or misunderstood.
I'm sorry, can you just state your name and
I'm sorry.
address?
Dana Havens, 113 Stoddard Ave. In regards to last year's budget increase, I may have heard wrong, but I think somebody said that you got in like 0 or 2%. And I just wanted to, clarify that no, you got 4.5. The town manager had wanted 3.5, and then the mayor and Dr. Brummett got together, and through MOUs and whatever, it ended up being a 4.5 increase. And that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you want in board remarks, you can. We just usually don't. But if you want.
Anybody else wish to participate? Okay, we can move on to remarks by board members. Miss Beatrice.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for the hard work that they've done. This budget process is my first and it's grueling. And I'm the first person to say thank you and appreciate all the hard work and the hard discussions that take place. We all know we care about our kids and our staff. We all know we care about our community, and we all live in this community. And so this impacts us all on many, many different levels. But a couple of words of caution, not to use a cliche, but I really want to be careful that we're not really penny wise and pound foolish. We've spent a lot of time tonight talking about certain line items on that budget. I feel like the explanation that's been given is something that I personally understand. And, I know that these discussions are hard, but it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility that these numbers are reasonable. I also want to caution us as a group to be very careful not to devote wrong piece of our budget on the backs of our hourly staff. These are people that keep our buildings humming. They do a lot of work with our kids that are unsung and yet so super, super important, and they are among the lowest paid in our district. And so we want to make sure that we're attracting the right kind of talent to our district, but more importantly, kids that are going to go above and beyond, people that are going to go above and beyond for our kids. And a big piece of that is paying them a wage that allows them to pay their bills and allows them to continue to be an important part of our school community. So I just want to say thank you for all your hard work, but please keep in mind some of the backside of that story. These conversations are very real and they impact people in a very real way, not just the employees, but our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Halloran.
No, I just want to echo Mary's sentiments as well. I second. I've been doing that a lot today. But I just wanted to thank everybody on the board for going through this budget season. It was my first as well. And I was just going to say that it's not over. Yeah. And I think there's an eye-opening experience, but I think that there is a lot of work because I think at the end of the day, it's about balance, right? We need to do what's right for our kids and what's right for our staff, but we can't do that in a reckless fashion either. So it's about having the right temperament, having compromise, having negotiation. But for me, that's how you get balance. It's not easy, but it is all hard work. So thank you for all the extra hours and all the non-overtime pay we get for putting in the extra hours. And I also wanted to thank the members of the policy committee as well. It's a lot. I think you did a great job. It is unforgiving sometimes. This goes for Mr. Freese as well. Thank you, and I look forward to part 2.
Miss Yap.
Hi, I just want to say a couple of things. So the first thing is, I want to thank everyone for their hard work. Just echoing what everyone else said. This obviously is a grueling process. We've done this now, some of us can say for years, and it just doesn't get easier. The second thing, if I'm allowed to address, was the public participation comment. So I was able to pull up the Rare Reminder article on April 27th, 2023. And it states that when the town manager brought his budget forward to us, he had recommended a BOE budget get at 3.5% above the year's budget, said WNO. In collaboration with the superintendent of schools, Dr. Maureen Brummett, were able to increase the board's budget to 4.5% by adding and reallocating funds. So that's in the article on the Rare Reminder on 4/27/2023. So I think what maybe Ms. Havens was referring to was and please correct me if I'm wrong because it's in the paper. I pulled up the article, like I said, in April 27, 2023, and it was quoted. So it wasn't as, I guess it became a zero, but were we like in the hole, like per se, and then whatever they gave us brought us to a zero? Because it's right here in the newspaper. I just want to address that because I was, when she had said that, I wanted to make sure I looked it up myself and I was able to find that. So it says, Dr. Brummett said we were able to increase the board's budget to 4.5% by adding and reallocating funds. This is a win for all of our students, teachers, and residents. So I just want to have that addressed, please. Thank you.
Thanks.
Who wants to clarify?
Mr. Well,
I just want to clarify to everyone that I asked about the 21-22 budget Everybody knows 23 was 4.5. I was talking about the 0 3 years ago during COVID.
Says it all.
Okay, so I think that's cleared up. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ms. Weaver.
Just in non-budget world and other things, although I echo those sentiments of appreciation. And again, will reiterate my frustration with the federal government not funding and only putting 2% of the federal budget to education and only funding 75% of special education funding that they say that they will, which would really easily alleviate some of our woes. And I will say our largest increased budget line, again, is on special education. Again, despite having less special ed students. Irrespective of that, I just want to say great job to the cast of Mamma Mia and Newsies. Just like some great things, things that we're really proud of in Newington is obviously just the incredible work that our students and our staff do to make some incredible productions. We obviously are an award-winning school district for music for that very reason. So I just wanted to congratulate them. Some of our board reps, our student reps were very integral in that. I saw both of them there. So I just wanted to say congratulations to them. I know they're not at the table tonight, but congratulations to them and just a wonderful job. Thank you for once again making our community a wonderful place.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, and the culinary department at the high school was fantastic with their Greece-inspired menu that we were treated to. Thank you, Dr. Brummett, prior to the show on a couple weeks ago. And yes, Newsies also was fantastic last week. And I also just wanted to say thank you to the town council last night for hosting us. And we did spend quite a bit of time there. They did ask some great questions and we had some really good discussions. So budget season is not over because we do still have a couple weeks left to go and hopefully we can get our numbers closer together. But just in the meantime, thank you to them for the discussion last night and we look forward to continued conversations.
And thanks for presenting, guys. Good job. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh,
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. Thank you.